and welcome to my video for day number 16 of Inktober. Now, the prompt I am using for today's piece was the word filigree, and I picked that prompt at the end of the last video. Now, when I initially wrote this prompt down and put it into my prompt hat, I didn't realize that it typically refers to jewelry. I'm not sure exactly what I thought it was, but I knew that it was something that was in line with things I typically like to draw, so I put it in. However, when I went to look it up, I saw everyone kind of referring to jewelry, which I found very interesting. However, it did end up working out because I don't always think to incorporate things like jewelry into my artwork, primarily because I don't wear a lot of jewelry. And logically, I know that just because I don't wear something doesn't mean that someone wouldn't. It just isn't always in the forefront of my mind. But I did have a lot of fun drawing this more intricate, delicate filigree necklace on this particular figure. I think it's a nice extra element, even though it was supposed to be the focus of the piece, which ultimately adds something to the design. Now, continuing to talk about the piece itself, somehow this piece became part of a mini-series within my larger Inktober series that is accompanied by days 10 and 15. And this is a very, very good example of my brain coming up with ideas for things while I'm working on other things. And in my head, these three characters are sisters, and they all have drastically different personalities, as is the case in real life oftentimes. I'm not sure exactly what their story is yet, but that is the connection that my brain made, so I thought I would kind of throw it out there because it might be of interest to someone. And I will probably expand on this concept at a later date, just to see what else I can do with it. One of the main things I was trying to do with this piece was approach a more interesting pose, which is something I have previously talked about wanting to do. I also made an active effort to include some hands instead of letting myself slack on that, as I often do. Mostly because I know if I never face those sorts of things, if I never try to draw more complicated poses or hands, I will never get any better at them. So when I decided that I wanted to do a figure for this prompt so that I could accurately draw what filigree was, I did take those things into consideration. Now, when it came to the values of this piece, I wasn't quite sure that I wanted the dress to be as dark as it is. I'm not really sure why. There was just something very intimidating about painting so many sections of the illustration with the darkest value. However, I had done some value studies where I had taken my sketch, printed it out, and used some markers to try to map it out. And this was my favorite version that I tried. So I decided to take a risk on it and kind of push past that uncomfortable feeling. And in the end, I am very glad that I did that because I think it really makes her stand out from the rest of the piece in a way that I really like. She very much feels like the focus. She feels very front and center, and that was what I ultimately wanted, as it is a piece that relies very heavily on the character for its composition. I do think I might have lost some of the details that I added into the dress. It was supposed to be an embellished dress with some sort of implication of beading or lace or something of the sort. And a lot of that did get covered up when I painted it so dark. But I think the way it makes the composition look kind of makes up for that. And the texture is still there, it's just a lot more subtle than it would have been if I painted it another value. And I do think I'm okay with that subtlety, especially because it might have gotten a bit overwhelming if there was all of that detail in the dress, and then there was also the filigree necklace. The focus on the filigree might have been lost, and it could have been slightly over-detailed for what I was trying to achieve. And so this might have actually ended up better in the long run. It's kind of hard to tell for sure because I don't have a finished version of any other values, but I am happy enough with it that I don't feel the need to start over, so that's good. Now, those details in her dress, though subtle, do link her to the other characters in this little mini-series. However, I also decided to add the flowing fabrics in the background, both to kind of fill some space, to add some interest, and to effectively tie her to the piece that I did in day 10 specifically. In day 10, I did a very similar thing where I had a character design and the flowing fabrics in the background. I also did it in one other illustration, which is not related to these pieces, but it was when I drew my character Evelyn, and I wanted to fill some space again. They're not quite background elements. To be fair, they are just kind of a way to fill space without actually drawing a background, which is something I would like to get better at. I've definitely drawn a few backgrounds this month, but I'm starting to feel like I need to push forward towards that again. And there's still plenty of days left to do that, so who knows what the rest of the month will hold. I, for one, am very excited to find out. But with all that being said, I don't really have a whole lot more to say about this piece. I really like the way that it turned out, and I like how it's linked to a few other pieces within the series. And I'm glad that I pushed past my comfort zone in a few ways, with the pose and the hands and the amount of contrast between the dress and the actual figure, because I think that those risks are the things that really made the piece pop, which maybe goes back to what I was talking about near the beginning of this month, where I was mentioning trusting myself more. And I do think that as the month progresses, I'm starting to do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this time-lapse process, and that you are also intrigued by the relationship between the characters in these pieces. And I'm going to transition us into the next part of the video, where I'm picking the prompt for the next one. So instead of showing you the piece right here and now, I think I'm going to jump right into picking the prompt, and I will show some close-ups after this. So let's just jump right in. And we'll do this one, and the next prompt is Heart Song. This is another one of those vague ones. I put a few prompts in here that were less physical objects and were more concepts, because I do like working from prompts like this. I think they're very fun and open to interpretation. Sometimes I take them very literally, sometimes I do it more conceptually. It just depends on how I feel in that particular instance. But I think that this will be very enjoyable. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. You can subscribe in order to continue seeing my future Inktober uploads. And I will see you guys next time.